So what are some hacks that you have found that helps people to be more productive and just kind of get things done as a ADD person, I guess?
I really break it into three pieces. So the neurotypical slogans, so I contrast them with the neurotypical slogans. The neurotypical slogans, right, that are very common and everyone has their various versions, right? Are things like just do it, it's not that hard, no pain, no gain. Right. And on the flip side, I sort of built this ADHD productivity model, which is basically people power, easy prevails, and pressure-free practice. So the idea is on like the people power stuff, right? Is our brains kick in when we have deadlines, when we have other people counting on something from us.
Mm,
And
yeah.
so and so literally, how do we then artificially create that in a way to support our goals? Because it exists by default in other people's goals, right? Like your spouse wants you to do something, your boss wants you to do something, your colleague wants you to do something. Like that exists because they make the request and then they hound you and follow up till it's done. But for your own goals, it doesn't exist by default because you're the only keeper of it, right? And so we need to artificially set up or create or find accountability structures, masterminds, coaches, other people who can hold for us those commitments so that we get the same, oh crap, I said that was going to happen to that person and I don't want to let them down, that we do on everyone else's goals. Everyone else's goals have default people power built in because the other person's going to bug you. And all the most important goals, your goals, don't have that built in, but it's really hard, especially like you at least get shit done, Robert, but like, especially if like, some of your listeners are kind of way less successful or effective than you are. And it's scary to set up an accountability structure with your
Right.
spouse or your best friend or your colleague
Doesn't
you're
they
just
don't
going to give them more evidence that you suck at following through.
Yeah, I think you have to get out of your comfort zone. I think you have to have somebody a little bit more ahead of you in a way. Whereas, because like
Yeah.
if I tell my girlfriend I'm going to do stuff, she's like, "Oh yeah, you've said that 25 times." Like we're not gonna. I'll agree and go with it, but I'm not actually going to hold your feet to the fire and stuff unless I have to. So that's a very cool one. You got any other tips? I guess because I like
Yeah.
being able to hear things from other people's lives.
No, totally. Yeah. So, I mean, the second one in that sort of model, right, is the alternative to no pain, no gain is easy prevails, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
like James Clear in Atomic Habits references the law of least effort, which basically says that our brains are going to do the thing that takes the least effort. Like it's just
Right.
natural. Like they're going to flow basically downstream, like whatever's downhill, easiest path. And so, really just taking that opportunity to engineer our environment such that the things we want to do become easier to do. And equally, the shit we don't want to do becomes a lot harder to do. So, look, I mean, you and I know that if you want to really get good focused work done, you can't have 50 like notifications going off. You can't have text messages and email pop-ups interrupting your flow. If you're trying to like, I don't know, script a YouTube video or do something, right? Like you're trying to do something that requires focus. You can't have all those, but sometimes it's just too tempting, right? So it's just how do we systematize? Which word is that? I think maybe they're both
Both.
words.
Yeah.
Yeah. Systematize making the stuff we want to do easier, making the stuff we don't want to do harder to do. So setting up things like notification blockers, setting up do not disturb, setting up putting our phone away when we're doing work sessions. So just little things like it doesn't have to be hard. And the other part about easy prevails is tapping into the stuff that you intrinsically find it enjoyable and that you're just intrinsically good at, right?
Mm.
Like you're good at talking to people in sales, Robert. Like it's super clear, right? And like you're good at like big picture trying stuff. Like you don't have like you're willing to take risks and like take a bunch of action. You've accepted that and you've embraced it, kind of like that zone of genius idea,
Mhm.
right? Like you're
Yeah.
like, cool, this is my unique ability. I'm just gonna roll with this. But a lot of people think that they don't have permission to do that. And they think that things have to be hard because they've been hard their whole lives. And if it comes easy to them, then it doesn't count. If they can do it quickly, it doesn't count. And they think that it has to be a struggle,
Mhm.
which is just not sustainable, for a business.
Well, also it's a mindset thing. Like if you think it's going to be a struggle, it's going to be a struggle. Whereas if you have like, this is going to be my North Star. This is what I want to do. You can convince yourself, or you can create like an alter ego that really loves doing stuff that you hate. You know, is that's kind of more advanced. Obviously, I don't think everybody's on that level, but I think it's a very interesting thing. You know, with ADHD, it's like you really have to have a balance, because you can also, like, number one, if you have a good coach, right? You need a good coach, okay? Because some of the biggest mistakes that I've made in my life was because I wasn't 100% confident in something, and somebody told me to do something different than what I wanted to do. And that goes against ADHD. That goes against like everything. And like, that was one of the biggest mistakes I've done, is because instead of listening to myself, which I knew I should have done, I picked up somebody else's idea he was not a mentor. He was just a coworker. And I was like, okay, maybe you're right. We should go in this direction. And that was the wrong direction. Or I'll just use him as a scapegoat, you know what I mean? For it blowing up or whatever. But you got to have a good coach. Like, you gotta have somebody who knows what they're doing, I think, because you can't just listen to everybody. And I think it also kind of comes back to, like, you know, if you don't have a plan, or if you don't know where you're going, or if you don't know what you like doing, then you're going to fall into somebody else's plan, and you're going to end up doing what they want you to do, in a way. So kind of an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah, I love what you said there, right? So, and I think that a lot of people are still a little bit slow to catch up to this change, right? So there's this idea of information versus education. Pre-internet days, pre-explosion of the internet, like, information was super valuable,
right?
Because it was hard to find. Where are you going to get it? Blah, blah. And a lot of people are still stuck in that pre-internet mindset. Whereas in reality, what all of your people want, all your listeners want, and everything, right, is they really want education. They don't want to just know stuff. They want to be able to do stuff differently. And, you know, a lot of the old school stuff was just focused on information, right? Like, you know, you just sort of like, oh, here's the information, pay $2,000 for it. But really, like, what people need now is, there's too much information. There are too many things to do. What people need now is they need someone that can, one, help them on the education, support their transformation, not just kind of be like, oh, here's all things to do, but equally, kind of as you were saying, they need people to tell them all the things not to do.
For myself, I'm the person that has to go run headfirst into a wall and then find the door somehow. Otherwise, like, I got to do everything the hardest way possible, as opposed to just listening.
Oh yeah, totally same. Like, super stubborn. But like, all these people I've talked to are like trying to start a podcast, a Facebook group, an Instagram, run a bunch of lives on YouTube, get their LinkedIn going, figure out what their offering is, try to figure out their target customer, try to do this, and like they're just trying to do too many things because they've read about all these things, and they've heard about all of them, and they've consumed them in free content, and
Right.
they need help figuring out what not to do in those areas. Like, okay, you know what? Why don't you put your LinkedIn aside for now? Because given your target audience, and, you know, why don't you order it in these ways? And you know what? Let's hold off on the Facebook group, or let's hold off on starting your podcast.
One of the questions that I ask everybody that kind of comes on the show is, what motivates you? You know, what really gets you going?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, you know, me personally, this has actually been one of my biggest challenges in self-help and stuff, is I'm not like, I like money, but I'm not directly motivated by material things. And I found that for myself and a lot of the clients I work with, a lot of ADHDers that I've worked with are just motivated like by the time freedom, right? Like, we want something scalable. Like, we don't want to work so damn hard, and we want the ability to like work when we want to work and not do stuff that we don't want to do. And so that's honestly my number one motivator, is just the time freedom and the ability to do work that I don't hate.
Right. Just do what you love, basically, is what motivates
Yeah.
you. I like that, man. That's awesome. And then the other question I ask is, like, the keyword is impact, but what's one habit that you've found or done that really, really has had an impact on your life? Like, you can actually see doing this one thing has really helped you.
Yeah. So I have a system that I teach my students called the daily one tough task. And the idea is basically to block out 30 minutes to 2 hours every day, and just basically to get tough tasks done. And there's a lot of days where I'm not overly productive, but there's almost no days where I don't get something important done. And the important stuff is usually the tough stuff, because that's the stuff that we tend to avoid. And so, rather than try to get 50 things done on your to-do list, like focus on the 1 to 3 really high impact things. And I do that every single day, and it keeps me, my business humming along, even when I have a lot of lazy days and, sign off at 2 o'clock. And so that's what I would say.
So do one tough thing every day.
Exactly. And then once you get good at that, you can expand into 2 and 3 tough things.
Right.
But yeah, that's been life changing.
I think, what is it, David Goggins? He's like, do one thing that sucks every day. Embrace
Oh man, nothing like reading or listening to Goggins. Like, I'm like, wow,
who's gonna carry the boats?
That dude is crazy. He's like he like admits that like all the pain and stuff, like he enjoys it. Like,
Right.
I don't know. I'm like, I totally respect you, and I'm probably like 180 degrees opposite from you. Like, it's like crazy reading his stuff.
Blood today, or run till
my
break or whatever. All right, man. Well, Aron, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. Do you have any kind of last thoughts before we wrap up, or anything you'd like to share?
No. I mean, I think the journey you and I have been on, right, just where we get to like build our own stuff, pursue our interests, even if they change and we start 25 businesses, or we do all the jumps. Like it's so much more rewarding than the corporate life of just doing what you're told and kind of being at someone else's whim. And so I salute you for all the work you're doing to help people kind of set up their things for success. And I salute all the people that are either doing it or contemplating doing it, because it's a very courageous and life affirming thing to invest in yourself and your business.
I agree. I do have one thing I wanted to touch on. So you said something earlier that I thought was kind of interesting. Do you think there's a taboo or a stigma to being ADHD in the corporate world? Like, is it, you're not allowed to talk about it? Like, I wouldn't know about anything, but is there a thing like
100%? Yeah. I mean,
really?
well, because you got to figure, right? Like Gen X and the boomers are still holding all the executive positions. So you have to take into account your audience's views, right? And so they're your customers. They're the people who control your promotions, your salary, all those things. So, so if they're your target audience, they look at ADHD as, some problem they had with their kid, or some problem that their nephew or someone had, or that they heard on the internet. Like, they're just like, all right, it's like a learning disability. The people don't get anything done. So like this whole like neurodiversity, let me look for the benefit and not having everyone think the same way. And like, all that is new. So it's catching up, but it's not the it's risky at a minimum, with limited benefit to disclosing if you don't have to.
Yeah. Do you have any tips on navigating the corporate world with ADHD?
I mean, it's not dissimilar to navigating a business with ADHD. Like, you just have to get good at assertively setting up, getting what you need, right? So like I needed time to work without colleagues interrupting me, my boss interrupting me, without instant message open, without all these things. So like I had to ask my boss, can I work on this thing? And like for 2 hours in another room without email and instant message, I had to train my boss that was okay. But like, we just need to like make our own path, and not be like, oh, well, the world won't let me do what I need to do. It's just like, figure out what works for you, and then use your assertiveness skills, your sales skills, your persuasion skills, to make reality conform to what you need.
I think we're going to end on that note, man. That was a mic drop. So well, I appreciate everybody listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave us some comments. This will be, everywhere, but if you're not listening to the podcast, give me some 5-star reviews. Check out the show notes if you want to connect more with Aron, and check out his TikTok. I highly recommend it. And everybody have a good day. Bye.